Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Saturday afternoon live stream for Week 13 of the 2025 fantasy football season. For over the course of the next hour plus, we're talking all things fantasy football. So if you guys have a question and you want to go ahead and ask me, whether it is via the live chat and or via super chat, in order to claim priority, again, all you have to do is include your scoring format. It'll make it easier for not only myself, but of course other members of this community to help answer your questions. Hope you guys have had a great couple last days. Happy Thanksgiving again for those of you who haven't been around the last couple live streams as of yesterday, as of course Thursday morning. Again, do not forget that tomorrow morning we'll be live here on the channel starting at 7 a.m. PST, answering any final questions as we approach the week 13 Sunday slate. Now, in regards to yesterday's game, guys, did anybody expect for the Chicago Bears to run for over 250 rushing yards between Monangai and Swift up the absolute can of the Eagles defense? Geez Louise. We need to have a little bit of gap discipline. We need to get off blocks, and the Eagles could not do that to save their life. Now, for those of you who have A.J. Brown, congratulations. You were able to prosper from the negative game script. But my goodness, was that a ridiculous showing by the offensive line and the running back tandem of Swift and Monangai, who, the last couple of weeks has been a little bit of a rough shot for them, but just absolutely came to life recently and hopefully can continue that momentum. But as we go into the Sunday slate of games, we have new information that has become more and more readily available to us based on the injury reports over the course of the last couple of days. So before we go ahead and get into answering questions like I do every Saturday, just want to go ahead and mention any players that are missing that could be of potential value point. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some players here. Obviously, we've already been designated Trey Benson and Amari DeMercado both out, so Bam Knight will be the starter this week for the Arizona Cardinals, for those of you who are in need of a potential pinch pick up and play at the running back position. Speaking of running back, the running backs of the Buffalo Bills may be in a little bit of trouble considering both offensive tackles are out for this week, so we'll have to wait and see how that kind of goes forward. Speaking of offensive linemen being out, we have the Carolina Panthers with two of their starting offensive linemen out today. Sunday. And additionally, on top of that, starting linebacker and, of course, starting number one cornerback, J.C. Horn. Expect for the Rams to absolutely impose their will wherever they want to, whether it's offensively or defensively. Then we move on to the conversation, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fully confirmed, we have BTJ back, ready to go, practicing at full. The only other situations there is a couple defenders for the Jacksonville Jaguars who will be missing, so hopefully that'll be a little bit of a closer game to force Trevor Lawrence to have to continue to throw the ball in the second half. In regards to a complete, not really surprise outing in terms of designated out, we have Omarion Hampton not playing. For those of you who have Kamani Vidal still on roster, be sure to potentially start him this week, as he'll have a pretty solid week as an RB2 with potential upside, assuming they give him the ample opportunity he deserves. Again, we have to keep in mind Omarion Hampton is falling into the same boat in which Trey Benson and additionally Bucky Irving have presented recently in terms of running backs coming off of a pretty substantial injury, missing more than 6 games, and then effectively not being active the first week back from practice. So hopefully Omarion Hampton will be ready for next week and then for the fantasy playoffs effectively for many of us. Speaking of Bucky Irving, had a full practice all week long, and it looks like we have Baker Mayfield trending to play, which is incredibly exciting for those of us who have, of course, anybody associated with that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, whether it is Emeka Egbuka, Bucky Irving, Cade Otton. All of them can be very much so relevant considering how that Arizona Cardinals defense has played of late. In regards to the Arizona Cardinals, again, we know that, of course, over the course of this week, Marvin Harrison has been, dealing with an illness. He's gonna play. Expect for Michael Wilson to still be a top 24 option, though. We talked about that yesterday, and we'll continue to harp on that. In regards to some other players potentially being out, a couple offensive linemen here and there, like Minnesota offensive starting guard is going to be out alongside of J.J. McCarthy. The left side of the New England Patriots offensive line, Will Campbell and Jared Wilson, both the rookie offensive linemen there, are going to be out. That doesn't really bode well for the potential of the running of a Henderson. Speaking of Henderson, reminds me of an early Alvin Kamara who's out this week. Devin Neal, a pretty solid potential play for the given upcoming slate. Outside of that, if there's anything of relative value, no. Everybody else we already pretty much know. Okay, with that all covered, again, if there's any other questions in regards to potential players in, out, etc., we'll go ahead and address that as we continue. But with this all taken into account, let's get into answering questions for Week 13. Appreciate y'all, guys. Y'all joining us on this wonderful Saturday. I know there's a lot of college football. Somebody mentioned something about John Cena in the live chat. I saw it. I don't know what's going on today, but maybe there's some sort of WWE something. But I appreciate y'all coming through. I know this is a little bit of a later live stream than we usually conduct, but again, with the holiday season obviously in full go here recently, schedule's been a little bit of wonky of late for me. But obviously getting into the next couple weeks 14, 15, 16, 17. It's going to be all locked in trying to win those fantasy football championships. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's pop the questions up on screen. To begin with Eric, who sends in a question and says, in a full PPR, 1 point per 10 receiving yards, 1 point per 5 rushing yards, flex 1, DK Metcalf, Bam Knight, Jordan Mason, or Blake Corum. Okay, so I have no interest in playing Jordan Mason at all. Again, with a third string quarterback against Seattle, it's already pretty much piling up to be a game in which most likely Seattle is going to impose their will, which will effectively eliminate the rushing category for the Minnesota Vikings, making Jordan Mason a far lesser option. As for Blake Corum, very much so reliant on the Rams taking a 30-plus point lead. And even in those circumstances, we've seen many times this season with a very substantial lead, the Rams don't even give Corum too much run to where he can get himself into the end zone, considering, again, they are all competing with Devontae Adams on the 1 yard line for a majority of those receiving touchdowns. So it's really just between DK Metcalf and Bam Knight as of right now. Between the two of them, considering the format the way it is currently constructed and the lack of receptions that Metcalf typically gets on a weekly basis, I think Bam Knight is your appropriate play this week taking on Tampa Bay. Thank you. Okay, Marty sends it a question. Marty8819 says, bench 1 in a full PPR. We have Michael Pittman Jr., we have Ashton Genty, we have Emeka Ibuka, Waddle, Rico, and Hendo. Genuinely, I think, okay, so this is my thought process. I think Michael Pittman Jr. will have his hands full taking on that defense. Derek Stingley, Lassiter, I don't think those are matchups in which we can 100% with a smile on our face, throw our wide receivers up against. Again, the only wide receiver genuinely this season that has had an actual substantial performance against Houston secondary, when we're talking about wide receivers who line up predominantly on the outside, is Jackson Smith-Njigba. Outside of that circumstance, very rarely have we seen a non-slot receiving option find success. And the reason why someone like Shakir is able to find as much success as he was last week is because Jalen Petrie, their primary nickel cornerback, has been out. So ultimately, outside of like Shakir, Parker Washington, Chimere DK, Troy Franklin, players of this caliber that are playing predominantly in the slot, outside of that, unless you score a touchdown, you're pretty much cooked, which we've seen it. We've seen, guys like Parker Washington, Van Jefferson, Cortland Sutton score touchdowns against the secondary, but it's not very much so a common outing. So I think of the group, Pittman is my odd man out. Thank you. Rob Monahan sends in a question. Rob, I hope you're doing well. Thank you very much. Says full PPR. Pick 2 wide receivers in a flex out of Michael Wilson, Khalil Shakir, Kamani Vidal, Bucky Irving, Cortland Sutton, Parker Washington, Devin Neal, and Oronde Gadsden. Okay, so you got a lot of incredible options here available to you. In a full PPR scoring format, I'm not as keen in terms of the idea of rolling with Sutton. With Brian Thomas back, I'm curious to see what Parker Washington's usage is going to look like. So I'd probably downgrade him in comparison to a guy like Michael Wilson and Khalil Shakir, who I'm trending towards being my number 1 and 2. So Sutton and Washington would take the backseat to both those options. We'll take Michael Wilson and Shakir as your starting wide receivers. Then it becomes a matter of who are we flexing between a Devin Neal and a Kamani Vidal and a Bucky Irving, because I don't really trust Neal outright. I know that the matchup itself is technically an advantageous one, taking on the Miami Dolphins run stop defense, but I don't know if I can outright blindly trust the back of this caliber, especially with Taysom Hill coming in and taking as much rushing workload as he did this most recent week. Again, I talked about it earlier this week when we talked about Devin Neal in specific. Taysom Hill had the vast majority of the rushing attempts in the second half of that game after Alvin Kamara went down. And again, unless Neal is going to get himself a boatload of receiving utilization, I think it would be difficult to compete with these other options here in the flex position. Let me see where I have him in a full PPR comparatively. Yeah, as of right now, if it's me, I probably just position myself with the Kamani Vidal situation to go Wilson, Shakir, Vidal as your top 3 options. I think if we wanted to take a risk, we could play Irving instead of Vidal. But again, Irving potentially limited in terms of his overall utilization and the volume of touches that he may be exposed to, even though I do want to play Irving at the first sign in which I get an opportunity to do so. Playing a player that is coming off of a major injury as such, may not be the greatest decision. So I'm leaning towards Michael Wilson, Shakir, and Vidal there, Rob. Thank you. Mike Shore sends in a question. Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mike says the following. Says, I need one in running back and one wide receiver and one flex. We have Henderson, Etienne, Dowdle, Abuka, and Michael Wilson. Okay, so first and foremost, in a half PPR scoring format, I would like to play Etienne and Henderson ahead of Dowdle. So in the case in which I'm looking at both these running backs, I currently do have Etienne ranked higher, considering, again, I mentioned before, the left side of the offensive line of the New England Patriots, the left tackle and the left guard, are both out. One on the injured reserve, the other one out this week. So I think Etienne is the better play, taking on that specific Tennessee Titans lacking run stop defense. So I'll lean towards Etienne as my RB1. That being said, I'm still going to play Henderson as my flex in this week. And then I probably will end up playing Abuka as my wide receiver 1. Now, I could end up playing Michael Wilson there. I think there is going to be a substantial kind of downtick of overall opportunity share in the return of a Marvin Harrison Jr. So in that overall thought process, I would still go with Abuka. So I'd go Henderson, Etienne, Abuka as my top 3 in that half PPR league. As for your second question, says I need 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex from Irving, Walker, Dowdle, Franklin, and Michael Wilson. Okay, so in this kind of a format, if we're looking for double RB, at this point, based on where I have Kenneth Walker kind of structurally ranked, is it half PPR as well? I'm assuming it's both half PPR. In this kind of a circumstance, let's see where I have Mr. Kenneth Walker. Kenneth. Okay, so that's the sketchy part. I think, okay, so taking on Minnesota, they can't stop the run either. I think the safest play is just to roll Walker and Dowdle. Walker for sure has to play in my mind at RB1. I think between Irving and Dowdle, it becomes a matter of like, is the lack of touches for Irving still going to be substantially more valuable than what Dowdle has in a negative script against the LA Rams? To which I think to myself, there's a possibility in which that is the case, considering how bad the Arizona Cardinals run-stop defense is, to which I would be willing to potentially filter in that direction. But for right now, I think the safest approach is probably going Walker and Dowdle, because we know the volume of touches that they'll probably be exposed to within the given game. But if you wanted to take a little bit of that potential risk and avoid Dowdle and that Carolina matchup, Irving and Walker is that number 1-2 combo. But for right now, in terms of like looking at where I have them ranked, I have Dowdle and Bucky back-to-back, and I have Dowdle ahead of them. So my suggestion would be Walker and Dowdle. As for Franklin and Michael Wilson, I'd rather play Michael Wilson as my wide receiver 1. And if this is a half PPR, in this circumstance, I think in a half PPR, I would usually consider playing all 3 running backs. Let me see where I have them ranked comparatively one another. Yeah. As of right now, in a half PPR, I'll play all 3 running backs and Michael Wilson. If it's a full PPR, I'll just take Walker, Dowdle, Franklin, and Wilson. Thank you. Marvin Lewis sends in a question, says, good day, sir. Who do I start in a standard league? Pitts, Johnson, or Waller? Okay, so I don't think Pitts is startable in any league at all. Not right now. And not for a while, probably. So in the case of Juwan Johnson versus Darren Waller, again, I really do like the matchup of Johnson versus Miami. We've talked about it ad nauseum over the course of the last couple of weeks in terms of fantasy points allowed by I'm going to go pull it up right now, by the Miami Dolphins and even the New Orleans Saints. Both of them have been taken advantage of at times. So let's pull up this stat. I know I didn't have a tight end or quarterback rankings video this week, but I will go ahead and convey the fantasy points per game allowed by this overall kind of circumstance. Since week 5, the Miami Dolphins are allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends, 13.97 in the last 7 games. Pretty good overall potential trot out there. And then New Orleans are kind of in the middle of the pack, allowing 11.17 fantasy points per game. So considering Waller's coming off of injury, Juwan Johnson's been on a little bit of a heat streak of late, I would go in the direction of playing Juwan Johnson in that standard scoring format. Even though Waller is very much so, like I can score a touchdown any given game, I do believe that Juwan Johnson's yardage alone is going to be a safer floor and then has just as much potential for upside for touchdowns as he has shown over the course of the last 3 weeks here in the absence of Shaheed. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Adziller sends it a question. Says start Kyron Williams or Henderson in a half PPR. Love from Australia. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Look, between the two of them, technically speaking, there should be an advantage for Travion Henderson absolutely mopping up the New York Giants defense. There should be an advantage there. But that being said, I don't know if he'll be able to actualize it with half of his offensive line out. or, 2/5 of them out. To which, as of right now in a half PPR, I'm a little bit more inclined to go in the direction of Kyron, get the banked 15 points and get out. If you're looking for more upside with a lesser potential floor of production, I would say Henderson's that move. To where like he can score, like let's say as of right now, I would probably venture like Kyron's like projected at like, once I adjust it a little bit more because a couple of the defenders that are missing from Carolina's defense, let's say he's at, like I project him at 15.5 fantasy points and a half PPR. Henderson's going to sit at like 12.5, but has a potential to get to 22.5, right? Like that's the kind of upside that he can present. So if you need like the comeback heroic efforts, you go for Hendo. Otherwise, I think the incredibly safe play is Kyron. Thank you. All right, on hell sends out a question. Says, who would you drop in a full PPR? I need to make some moves. I have DK. He gets points for return yards. Okay, good to know. Or Charbonnet. Running backs are Bucky, Achane, Henry, Dowdle, Marks. Wide receivers are Chase, Sutton, and Wilson. Okay, so of these available options, I would say if you're getting points for return yards, I think Charbonnet is a lesser contributing factor to your team as a whole. Because when I look at, I've talked about this with others over the course of the last couple of weeks in regards to Chimere DK's returning yardage potential in leagues in which you're getting points per return yards. His overall yardage in that category is far too substantial to absolutely ignore. Just of late, we're talking about the return yardage looking like just his last game against Seattle. Obviously had a punt return for a touchdown. We understand that, but he's done that in 2 of the last 3 games. But ultimately, we're talking about, what is that, 180? No, sorry. Yeah, that's 188 yards his most recent week. So if you're getting 18 points, technically speaking, from return yardage, what are we talking about? On top of it, he had 5 catches, 44, and a tutty. 2 weeks prior to that, had over 200 return yards. The week prior to that, 175. The week prior to that, 99, 66, 169. 141, 162. If you're getting 1 point for every 10 return yards, I would 100% say that Chimere DK is not only the better option, but would probably start over everybody but Chase going forward. Thank you. All right, continuing on. We had a question that came from James King, 4577. It says full PPR, Bucky, Jacoby, BTJ, or Parker Washington at the flex. Okay, so this is a really tough question because we haven't seen the deployment of all 3 of these wide receivers together yet, right? Because BTJ has been out since they've traded for Jacoby Myers. I would assume BTJ goes back to functioning as the wide receiver 1. Jacoby will be the number 2, and Parker will be the the slot receiving option within this overall approach. Am I willing to roll any of those 3 over Bucky? No, I wouldn't. I don't know if I can objectively say who's going to get the vast majority of targets. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably Parker Washington, which as of right now, in a full PPR, it could be a play to where he could end up coming away with an easy 10 points. If he scores a touchdown, upwards of 16, 5 catches, 50 yards, something of that range. But as of right now, I would feel a little bit more comfortable rolling with Bucky, considering the very difficult potential of predicting the upside of these 3 receiving options there. Fantasy Forecast sends it a question. It says, Brissett or Purdy? I'd much rather play Jacoby Brissett. Again, I mentioned it yesterday, and we can go ahead and continue to expand upon it. The weather tomorrow in Cleveland's a little bit of a substantial one. It's looking like 21-mile-per-hour winds and it says a 55% chance to snow during the game. So as it stands with that all involved, and I mentioned it yesterday, guys, the Cleveland Browns defense has been incredible at home this season. If I go ahead and pull it up right now, just so that we're all on the same page. Let's go here. I need to go to... let me pull this up so we're all on the same page. So this season, while at home, the Minnesota Vikings, let's see here. Okay, so they've allowed, while at home, 23, 17, 10, 6, and 21 points. So they've only allowed 23 points max while at home. They've been an incredible defense. The fantasy points they put up at home has been unstoppable. And with Purdy playing a little bit shaky, I'm a little bit worried about his upside there. So I'd go with Jacoby Brissett in a shootout against Tampa. As for Adams, London, T, Lamb, and Burden, I'm under the impression that London's already been designated out. I could be mistaken. Now that you've mentioned this, I'm going to just recheck. But as of right now, looking at Drake London, unspecified. Interesting. Hold up. Let's go to Twitter. I need to cross-reference this. Interested why that is unspecified for him. Drake If he ends up playing, that'd be incredible, though. Alrighty, let's see here. Won't play week 13 against the Jets. Okay, cool. Just making sure. Okay, so in this case, Devontae Adams is your number one. T. Higgins is already out because he's concussion protocol, so Lamb must have started alongside of him. It says Bucky, Benson, Hendo, Bam, Javonte. And it says start 2 running backs and 1 flex. So basically, I'm assuming because Lamb has played, London's out, T's out, Burden already played. Adams is your only wide receiver to play. So wide receiver, 2 wide receiver, you can't play 2 wide receivers. This doesn't make any sense. This question's like a copy paste from before or something. I don't understand. So anyway, Adams is playing, Brissett is playing, but Benson's out. Your starting running back, Javonte, should have already played alongside of Hendo, and the flex should be Bucky. Thank you. All right, Linton sends it a question. Says full PPR. Burrow against the Bills next week away with potential weather, or T-Law at home against Indy. I would be very willing to still roll Burrow away against the Bills with weather. If you guys remember, a couple years ago in the NFL playoffs, Burrow went into Buffalo and absolutely ransacked that team. Let me pull this up for the preferences of those of you who want to actually have the stats read off. So if I'm not mistaken, let's see. If I go to his career postseason, yeah, here we go. So a couple years ago, as of the date of January 22nd, 2023, so this is the 2022 season, Joe Burrow went up to Buffalo, threw for 242 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and they won 27-10 in a blowout fashion in a heavy snow game. I'm still rolling Burrow in that circumstance. As for your next question, Sutton or Flowers rest of the season, with the way that Lamar's playing lately, I'd probably lean towards Sutton there and hope that he bounces back, because at least Sutton has touchdown upside. X Medina sends it a question, says full PPR question is in the chat. Thank you. Says, need help picking my running backs in flex. I need 2 running backs and 1 flex. My options are Bucky, Judkins, Walker, Neal, Sutton, and Mechie. So I would genuinely end up playing all 3 of these running backs. I would play Judkins, Walker, and Bucky. I don't know if I can outright trust Neal just yet. He'd kind of have to prove it. And then Sutton and Mechie are a little bit sketchy. Even though in a circumstance of a full PPR, they are decent plays, I'd feel more comfortable rolling with all 3 of your stud backs there, Medina. Thank you. Stormtrooper24 says, hello. Questions in the chat. Thank you. Okay. Says, who should I start? Sutton, Pittman, Mechie, Michael Wilson. As of all those options, Michael Wilson's the best available wide receiver this week. Not even close. As for running back, we have Warren, Vidal, Kenneth Walker. Also, okay, so in the event in which we're starting them in order, the order in which I would represent these wide receivers would go Michael Wilson 1, Cortland Sutton 2, probably Mechie 3, Pittman 4. Like, that's how substantially low I am on Pittman. And then looking at running back, you have Warren, you have Vidal, you have Kenneth Walker. I think Warren's number 1, Vidal's 2, and Kenneth Walker's 3. Then moving on, also, will Tyler Warren play? Yeah, I mean, look, he's dealing with an illness, but over the course of this season thus far, we have seen that many players that have been dealing with illnesses do not end up missing. It's only just a thing that we have to keep an eye on just in case, but ultimately I do anticipate him to play. Don't have a backup tight end. We have Barner, Taylor, Parkinson are available. I would assume that he's going to play. In the event in which you have to pivot off of him, I would probably end up picking up, looking at your availables, looking at how many points per game Minnesota allows to opposing tight ends. They've allowed 13.77 since week 5. I'd probably pick up and play Barner there, potentially. Thank you. All right, TPD says, will Mike Evans be back for the fantasy playoffs? As of right now, the projection is week 16. As to whether or not that is in fact the case, to be determined. Already this season, we have seen on multiple occasions the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are incredibly stingy on letting their players return immediately. They typically like to ramp them up for a couple weeks. So in the case of Mike Evans, I know it's not a knee or a hamstring or nothing like that. He is technically dealing with a broken collarbone. So there may be a time in which maybe he's not available until week 17. And unless you have an open IR spot that is never going to be kind of messed with, that's the only reason you would ever pick up Mike Evans, because otherwise you'd have to blindly start Mike Evans in a singular week in hopes that he has to win you a championship week 16 or 17 in that circumstance. So will he be back? I hope so, but nothing guarantees it. 26 Band sends it a question, says, Who do I start in a full PPR standard scoring format? I started Pickens and Jacobs. I need a quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 flex. We have Stafford, Herbert. Okay, so for really quickly, between Stafford and Herbert, I prefer to play Stafford. Moving on to Christian McCaffrey is your RB1. That's clear and away. Then you have JSN, auto start. Abuka, auto start. Tyler Warren, Waller. I'm going to play Tyler Warren there if he's healthy, or at least active. And then within your flex position, it's pretty simple. I mean, I think Jalen Warren is the go-to in this circumstance. Taking on Buffalo's, incapable run stop defense, missing one of their starting linebackers and lead tacklers on the team. Jalen Warren's the play in that position. Thank you. Now, I will say there is a conversation to be had in regards to playing Michael Wilson there, but I do believe that Marvin Harrison will return. Again, the expectation is that he should be available tomorrow, and with that, I think that Wilson's value diminishes enough to where Jalen Warren is the better play. Thank you. Julian Figueroa sends in a question, says, what's up? Full PPR, Harvey or K9? I'd much rather play Harvey. Again, I know that Kenneth Walker in the last couple of weeks has gotten himself receiving utilization, which is incredibly valuable, but I do believe that what Harvey's going to put forth is going to be the overall opportunity share, which we have seen Dobbins work with in weeks past, to which he should get himself upwards of 15 plus touches per game rest of season. And in those overall opportunities, especially taking on a Washington Commanders incapable defense that can't cover running backs through the passing game, can't stop the run, Harvey's the better play. As for Diggs or Wilson, I prefer to play Stephon Diggs in this circumstance, taking on the New York Giants this week and their secondary that can't cover a soul. Michael Wilson, again, is still a great play, but in the case of this circumstance, I will prefer Diggs. Thank you. Aiden sends in a question, says PPR, choose 1 wide receiver, 1 flex between Wilson, Bucky, Tedoroa, McMillan. Love you. Appreciate it. So, of these availables, in a full PPR, I think you have to play Michael Wilson out of this group. And then between Tedoroa, McMillan, and Bucky Irving, ultimately, I think a negative game script for Tedoroa McMillan is very positive, especially if the LA Rams forget how to cover wide receivers. But I think the pass rush is going to be a little bit too substantial for Bryce Young to be able to just comfortably sit back there and deliver the ball. The way that I see it, I would still probably play Tedoroa because of the full PPR format, but it is sketchy. I can identify that, and it does scare me to do so, but I think that's the direction I'd go with. I go Wilson and Tet. Akuma 18-7. Full PPR. Sup, Drew? We need to pick 2 in a double flex. We have Tedoroa, Woody Marks, Michael Wilson, Michael Pittman, John Mechie, Parker Washington, and Trey Tucker. Not sure about Pittman. Neither am I. So in this circumstance, I think Michael Wilson is your most valuable option for your first double flex full PPR, to which then it becomes a matter of, am I playing Tedoroa McMillan or am I playing Woody Marks? Because I don't really want to trust Parker Washington outright. I don't trust Trey Tucker itself. Michael Pittman's matchup's a disaster. Mechie's decent, but again, still tough to trust. Tyrod every week out. As of this moment, if it's my team, I probably go Tedoroa and I go Michael Wilson in this circumstance and hope for the best. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Moses sends in a question. Moses Andrade says, 12-team PPR, start 1, Alec Pierce, Keenan Allen, Jaden Higgins. Out of this group, genuinely, okay, so Keenan Allen's overall receiving utilization has diminished greatly over the course of the last couple weeks here, primarily because, again, they're running a lot of tight end, kind of utilized formations. They're getting him less touches. I mean, of late, at most, he's getting himself 8 or 9 fantasy points in a full PPR. I know earlier this season had a pretty substantial game against the Raiders, but it's been a long time since then. So between these available options, I don't really trust Alec Pierce either in this coverage. And I don't really love Jaden Higgins either within this coverage. So it is a little bit of a tricky situation. Of these secondaries and of these players, the ones that I trust the most, let me see, where do I have? Let's move this over. Alec Pierce is there. Yeah, as of right now, the way I currently have it structured, I have Alec Pierce as the highest ranked because I don't trust Keenan. I objectively don't really know if CJ Stroud is going to deliver the ball in Higgins' direction as consistently as we want. So I'd probably just cash in on Michael Pittman pulling the number 1 coverage and Daniel Dimes just littering Alec Pierce with targets. Jay Nice, 5873, says, if Tyler Warren doesn't play, who would you pivot to? Depends on what your alternative options are, brother. I mean, if I go and look at potential waiver wire available players on Sleeper, I can maybe give you a couple ideas as to which direction we'd go into. As of right now, obviously, I'd like Darren Waller. That's a player that I would like to potentially play in that circumstance. Again, he's available. He's got touchdown upside. Before him, I do prefer Bretton Strange this week. I do like the potential of Dalton Kincaid also returning this week. So in this case, I would say Brenton Strange would be 1, Kincaid would be 2, maybe Cade Otton 3, Darren Waller 4, in the case in which we're maybe in a full PPR. If we're like in a standard league, I could justify playing outright Darren Waller because of touchdown potential, but I wouldn't want to maybe play that in the first week in return. So for now, Strange, Kincaid, Otton, Waller, maybe hopefully available in your format. Thank you. All right, continuing on. Sorry about that. Trying to be as quick as I can. I know I'm very long-winded with some of these questions. All right, let's see here. JBro98 says, for my second running back, who do I start? Knight, Bucky, or Devin Neal? And for my last flex spot, I've got Dortch or Hollins or a running back that I don't put in an RB2. Yeah, so we're going to play double RB here. And in this circumstance, it depends on what your scoring format is, because I do think that Devin Neal's receiving utilization will be enough to kind of convince me to potentially play him over the likes of someone of the caliber of a Bam Knight. Maybe. Again, Bam Knight has been very much so touchdown relevant of late. So it does make it a little bit of a conversation there. As of right now, do I 100% roll in the direction of a Bucky or a Devin? Yeah, as of right now, if we're playing in like a full PPR, I'd probably go Bucky and Devin Neal. If it's like a half PPR or a standard, at that point, I'd be okay going like Bucky and Knight. Thank you, J-Bro. Hakima, what's up, my man? Hope you're doing well. It says, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I did. Thank you. Again, I still got a lot of leftovers after this stream. You guys know what I'll be doing. Need 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, 2 flex. I have Michael Wilson, Emeka Ibuka, Sutton. Okay, so easily, I think in this okay, let me just read the rest of the question. It says, at running back, I have Etienne, Achane, Cook, Henderson, Brees, and Harvey. Okay, so this is not an easy question. Okay, so of your availables, I think Achane, James Cook, actually, I think all of these are must starts. Wow. How many of these are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 running backs that I think are all must starts, and I would probably start them all above these receivers, but you have 4 spots to fill. So as it currently stands in terms of my rankings, Devon Achane must play, James Cook must play. Who else do we have? Etienne must play, Henderson must play, and that's pretty much it. We have to leave Brees Hall out of the mix. Oh my God, I hate that. I think Brees Hall's a really good play. I think Harvey's going to pop off this week. Shit. Yeah, so these 4 that you have mentioned first are my highest ranked, and that's the direction I'd go in. I hate the idea of sitting Harvey or Brees, but, I mean, when you have this good of a team, it's a blessing and a curse. As for wide receiver, if Baker ends up starting, I'm playing Ibuka. Otherwise, I pivot to Michael Wilson. Thank you. J Park 7450 says, hey, Andrew, 10-man, half PPR league. I must win in a must-win situation for the playoffs. Which 2 running backs should I play? Rico, Bucky, Vidal. I genuinely would probably tell you to play Rico and Vidal just to be safe. Again, I know that Bucky Irving's got a great matchup, but in his first week back, the way with this team has been in terms of the conservativeness in which they have put forth in terms of protecting Bucky, I think Rico and Vidal are the correct plays as of this week. Thank you. Sportsman sends in a question. Says Pittman, Nico, Wandell, Jefferson, Sutton, McLaurin, Genty, Judkins, Moody Marks, Etienne. 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 flex. Love the channel. Thank you very much. All right, so in terms of wide receivers here, I think your best plays are Nico and Wandell Robinson, genuinely. I think Jefferson in this circumstance with Brosmer is not the greatest play. I don't like the matchup for Pittman. I don't really like the overall utilization of Sutton. I don't like the matchup for McLaurin against Patrick Surtain. Outside of that, okay, so Nico and Wandell Robinson is my number 1 and 2. Maybe we could play Jefferson in the flex. Let's see what else you have. In terms of running back, I think Genty has to start alongside of Etienne here. So in this circumstance, those are the 4 that I would play. Considering you can only play 1 running back and 1 flex, I would suggest you go Nico Collins, Wandell Robinson, Ashton Genty, and Travis Etienne. Thank you. Alex sends in a question. Thank you very much, sir. Says PPR pick. Neal/BTJ. I would probably rather play Neal. Bucks or Browns, I'd rather play the Browns defense. Boswell, Mevis, or Little, I'd probably feel most comfortable playing Cam Little in this circumstance. Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate that, my man. All right, Andrew Meyer, 704, says full PPR, tight end, Waller, Kincaid, Juwan Johnson, Schultz, Fannin, Strange, or Ertz. Okay, so let me go ahead and reiterate my rankings, and I can get them off the top of my head right now. So, in terms of tight end in a full PPR this week, I would prefer to go number 1, Dalton Schultz, number 2, Juwan Johnson, Number 3, I'm going probably Bretton Strange, then Dalton Kincaid, then Waller, then Ertz. That's the order in which I would expand these tight ends. So Schultz, actually Fannon's probably last in that group as well after Ertz. So Schultz and Juwan Johnson, if available, one of those two. Schultz is my number 1 based on his overall opportunity share at an incredibly high rate in the floor of production that he puts forth in a full PPR. And Juwan Johnson's been just as consistent of late, but those are the number 1 and 2. Jeremy Morrow sends out a question. Jeremy, thank you. Says 1 flex, 1 tight end. Darren Waller or Juwan Johnson? I'd prefer to play Juwan Johnson at tight end. Troy Franklin, Devin Neal, Michael Pittman Jr., Kenneth Gainwell. Okay, really good question. It depends on scoring format. If we're talking about a full PPR, I probably just play Troy Franklin. If we're talking about a half PPR, I think there's a conversation for Devin Neal, but I probably still stick with Franklin. Only in a standard league would I probably end up rolling Neal. So for now, I think Troy Franklin's your answer as your flex. Juwan Johnson is your tight end. As for defenses, I have the LA Rams, but Arizona is out there too. LA Rams has to be your start. Based on where I have them currently ranked, let me go ahead and pull that up real quick. I have the LA Rams as my number 2 defense on the week, only behind the Seattle Seahawks. I do have technically the Arizona Cardinals in the mix of being in the top 12 remaining defenses, but in this circumstance, I'd feel way more comfortable rolling the Rams. Thank you. 513 Rookie sends in a question. Says in a non-PPR, I need 2 between Franklin, Pittman, and Metcalf and Ibuka. I'd go Ibuka and I would go Franklin. Those are the 2 which I prefer. Thank you. Jesse says Vidal, Judkins, or Tetaroa in the flex. As of this moment, I'm leaning it. I think it's probably Vidal or Judkins in hopes of a touchdown. I think the correct play is Kamani Vidal, though. In the absence of Omarion Hampton, what we have seen, and I can pull this up right now from Vidal, I know it's been very much so up and down weeks where he'll go from like 22 to 7, then 19 to 3, then 17 to 3. Hopefully this is the odd week, or this is the even week to where he gets even and puts up a 20-point performance again. But based on the fact that, again, in the games in which he has had himself lackluster performances, when they've taken on Jacksonville and Indianapolis, they were blown out in both those games. They could not continue to run the ball. And against Tennessee, it was a little bit of a fluke game there in which they were kind of getting manhandled. So against the Raiders, I would assume got a lot of upside in this circumstance against the defense that gives up their fair share of points to opposing backs. So I'd go in the direction of Vidal there, Jesse. Thank you. SR20 Moore has sent in a question. Thank you very much, SR. Says, pick 2, Bucky, T-Mac, or Wilson. If it's a full PPR, I'm taking both wide receivers. If it's a half, I can convince myself to go Bucky and Michael Wilson. Pick 1, Knicks or Stafford. I would rather play Matthew Stafford. Thank you. TPD45 says Jaguars or Browns defense. Let me see where I have them structured right now. I have the Browns there, Jaguars. As of right now, I think it's going to be dependent on a couple of factors. I do believe that the better play is the Browns this week, and that's kind of the direction I'm going to go in. If the weather is going to be really much, if it's going to be a very snow or maybe rain heavy game with high mile per hour winds, I think it does eliminate the potential of Purdy's, kind of like really getting ahead and blowing out that defense. So for now, I think there's a little bit of a safer floor of going for the Browns rather than the Jaguars, considering how competitive the Tennessee Titans have been as of late. Tennessee forced Seattle to only score 6 points as a defense last week. So I'm not 100% in on the Jags as of right now. So I go with the Browns. OJ Running sends it a question. Says PPR, Tetaroa, Vidal, or Neal for the flex. I'm going Kamani Vidal there. Thank you. TPD sends it a follow-up. Says Diggs or Judkins in the flex. Full PPR. I'm taking Stephon Diggs there. That is the preferred of the 2. Thank you. OJ Running had a follow-up. Says happy belated Thanksgiving. We're thankful for you. Thank you very much. I'm thankful for you guys. Again, I'm not able to do this unless you guys continue to come here and support the channel with your viewership by clicking the like button and, of course, continuing to spread the word of, of what I do here on this channel. I appreciate you guys. Very thankful. Thank you. MVM sends in a question. Says Rico, Judkins, Harvey, Vidal, Neal, Ladd, Tet, Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Kittle, Bowers, Texans, Browns. Please pick 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, and a defense. Okay. So as of right now, in terms of running backs, I believe your 2 best plays at running back consist of Vidal and Harvey. So those are my 2 starting running backs off the rip. Then we go to wide receiver. I believe that Ladd McConkey and Marvin Harrison should be started. I believe that Bowers should be your tight end. And genuinely, I do think that Michael Wilson in a full PPR is probably the play there at flex. To which then we're looking for a defense between the Texans and the Browns. And I probably blind start the Texans every week henceforth. Otherwise, if you want to play the Browns, you can, but I will have the Texans ranked higher tomorrow. Thank you. LG Crazy 101 says in an 8-team half PPR, 1 flex league, I'm starting wide receiver and flex. Okay. Need starting wide receiver and flex for help. I've got Ibuka, Michael Wilson, and Godwin. For the flex, I've got Woody Marks, Tyrone Tracy, and Kenneth Walker Charbonnet. Okay, cool. Look, in a half PPR, I think it's playing Ibuka and Kenneth Walker. I think that's probably your 2 best plays in this circumstance. I think Michael Wilson's been absolutely out of his mind as of late. But with Marvin Harrison returning, I think he does diminish his overall opportunity share, therefore his fantasy points. So Ibuka and Kenneth Walker will be my suggestions there. Thank you. Moving on to a question from CS Derek. It says, questions in the chat. Thank you, sir. Hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you very much. I hope you're doing well as well. It says, start 4. Marvin Harrison, if active. Michael Wilson, Shakir Olave, if active. BTJ Franklin, and Alec Pierce. Okay, so there's a lot of contingencies here. In the event in which everybody is active, Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Chris Olave, Khalil Shakir. Those would be my top options. In the event in which either Marvin Harrison or Olave are not available, the next best option is Troy Franklin, then BTJ, then Alec Pierce. Thank you, CS Derek. I appreciate it. All right. What is it? Chiso says, what's up, Andrew? Which quarterback do I start this week? Bryce Young, Cam Ward, Kirk Cousins, Shadur Sanders, Brosmer, or Geno? I think the best play of the bunch is probably Kirk Cousins against the Jets. Because when I look at the potential of Geno Smith Geno Smith has just not been the guy. He turns over the ball far too much. He can be a liability for your team. So that's my only potential scare. He could score you 14 points, right? The last 2 weeks, 13.92, 14.2. Decent. But I think more often than not, he's going to be in a little bit of a trouble situation, especially earlier this season against the Chargers. He threw 3 interceptions. They've got his number. I have no interest in playing Brosmer against that Seattle defense. I think Bryce Young is fool's gold. And I think Cam Ward, again, if he's able to throw the ball a bunch, he could find success, but it could be a little bit of a trouble situation. Shadur with the weather. Again, he played in Colorado, so I'm not too worried about it. But I think Kirk Cousins in this circumstance is your best play. Thank you. Jaw476 says, didn't know YouTube takes a cut of super chats. Yeah, they do. And it's not a small amount either. It's a pretty substantial amount. You deserve it all, man. Thanks for the help over the last few years. Do you think Lamar ever gets back to the form or has a good fantasy playoffs? I've got Mahomes. Okay, so look, the upcoming schedule for Lamar is not really difficult at all to where I would be afraid of it. I just don't know if he's going to show up. His fantasy playoff schedule is Cincinnati again, which he should have played well against, then New England, and then and then the Green Bay Packers. Again, I think that those games should all be shootouts. They all should be. But in the case of where you have Mahomes, I think Mahomes should probably be started every game henceforth the rest of the season, as they're probably going to be in shootouts and or of course scoring a bunch in order to try to win out and make the playoffs with an 11-5 or 11-6 record. So Mahomes is probably the better option going forward, especially the way that, Lamar has looked as of late. Now, I will say, this most recent game, if it isn't for that fumble into the back of the end zone by Isaiah Likely, and then subsequently after that, offensive pass interference call from Zay Flowers, he ends up throwing 2 touchdowns. And in that case, of course, it's a completely different story. So in 1 week's time, after they play against Pittsburgh this next week, he could be back. But until then, play Mahomes. And then if he can kind of build some consistency, then at that point we can maybe kind of enter the chat of talking about his play. Thank you very much, Shaw. I appreciate it. All right, we move on to Vamsi, who says, full PPR league. I need a wide receiver and a flex between Wanda Robinson, Michael Wilson, Woody Marks, Kamani Vidal, and Tyrone McMillan. As of these available options, my 2 highest ranked are Kamani Vidal and Wanda Robinson. Those would be the 2 best options in my opinion. I think if Marvin Harrison was out, then you go Michael Wilson instead of Kamani Vidal here. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question. Last 4 weeks, says, hey, Andrew. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I did. Thank you very much. I hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully, again, the football games treated you right over the course of the last 2 days here. And, of course, you've been able to kick your feet up and relax. And if not, hopefully today's that day. In regards to the potential of your question, non-PPR, Wanda Robinson or Devin Neal? In a non-PPR, I feel a little bit more comfortable rolling with a running back in this circumstance. So within this situation, I probably just play Devin Neal there. I will say, over the course of the last couple games, in the absence of Jackson Dart. Wan'Dale Robinson's been pretty solid in terms of target opportunity, but even prior to that, like 3 of the last 4 games in which we've seen Wan'Dale Robinson play with Jackson Dart, he's had 11, 11, and 12 targets. So without the reception counts there, because he's had like 95, 46, and 62 receiving yards, he's scoring less than 10 fantasy points. Unless he scores a touchdown, which has been very rare for him this season, I do believe in a standard format, Neal is the answer. Daryl sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR 12 team, pick 2 between Franklin, T-Mac, Neal, and Marks. Okay, so Troy Franklin, I believe, is my auto start there, to which it then becomes a matter of, am I going to play Tetairoa McMillan or one of these 2 running backs? I'll have both these running backs very closely ranked. They're both very much so like contingent on a couple of plays leading to a touchdown for them to be more relevant than a player like Tetairoa, in my opinion. So in a full PPR, I probably just go with both receivers here. Thank you. Mike Shore 9608 says, in a half PPR, I need a flex between Tetairoa McMillan, Dowdle, Sutton, and BTJ. In a half PPR, I genuinely would just play Dowdle there. I think that is the safest floor of production. Thank you. HFL sends in a question. Says, Knicks, Baker, Dart. Need this win. Of these available, I think it's between Knicks or Dart. I don't know if I want to play Baker because let's say he gets injured again and leaves the game. Not really worth it in my mind. So it's between Knicks and Dart, to which I think to myself, both are in incredible positions to succeed. Jackson Dart, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling, but Knicks has a safer floor. So it's just really a matter of like, are we trying to just get floor of production, or are we trying to catch up because the team that you're taking on had Jamison Williams, AJ Brown, and Derrick Henry? You know what I mean? In the event in which it's a comeback effort, we're going after Dart. If we're looking for safe floor, it's Knicks. Moving on to Jesus Chavez, who sends in a question. Jesus, thank you. It says, start 3, rank full PPR, Metcalf, Pearsall, DK, Parker Washington, Alec Pierce. Okay, if I'm starting 3 of these options in a full PPR scoring format, I'm starting Metcalf, then Parker Washington, and then I'm probably following up with the next best option. Okay, I think Chimere DK could be the answer. I think it's dependent on a couple factors, but I think I'm going to go with DK there in a full PPR. So I'll go Metcalf, Washington, DK, then Pierce, then Pearsall. That's the order in which I send it. The reason why I don't trust Pierce is because of the matchup against the Houston Texans. Pearsall has a very heavy weather game in Cleveland, and the other 3 alternative options have been great of late. So I'll lean in those directions. Alex Songgrass sends in a question. Thank you very much. Says, hey, bro, 6 point per passing touchdown, Dart or Brissett? I think we talked about this earlier in the week. I think, again, as of right now, if you just want to cash in on a very simple 20 fantasy points, it's Jacoby Brissett. If we want a little bit extra upside, again, little extra upside, I mean like he has the potential, like Brissett has the potential of 20 to 26 fantasy points, while Jackson Dart could be anywhere between 18 to 31 fantasy points, right? So it's just a matter of like, where do we go within those 2? As of this moment, I do have Jacoby Brissett slightly ranked higher than him because I'm a little bit like sketched out just in case. Jackson Dart returns and he's not as run heavy, not as run frequent. I'd rather just play Brissett and just cash in on the shootout there with Marvin Harrison back. Non-PPR, Dowdle or K9. As of right now, I'll take Kenneth Walker there. As for your next question, non-PPR, pick 1 between Tetairoa, Sutton, and JJ. I'd rather play Justin Jefferson, assuming it's Justin Jefferson and not Juwan Jennings. If it's Juwan Jennings, I'd rather play Tet. Thank you. Full PPR, pick 1 between Marks, Neal, and Irving. Between those available in a full PPR scoring format, geez Louise, I think it's probably either Irving or Neal. Can I trust Woody Marks in that script? He gets good touches, man. Woody Marks gets a lot of touches overall, which I'm hoping that Neal and Irving will have a very similar volume to. Do I want to just outright trust the player coming off of injury comparatively to those? I might switch this by the time we get to tomorrow morning, but let's just probably lean to... I want to play Irving. That's what I want to do. I think it just might be too sketchy. I think we just play Neal or Marks. I'd probably, in a full PPR, take Neal. Half PPR, take Marks. It's tough, man. I want to play Irving, though. But I'm beginning to kind of like sketch myself out about it. Broncos defense or Texans? As of right now, where do I have them ranked? I have the Broncos ahead of the Texans. Thank you. J Will 2687 says, my GOAT, BTJ, Alec Pierce, or Diggs, non-PPR. I'll take Stephon Diggs there. Number 1, BTJ is 2, Alec Pierce is 3. Thank you. Alex sends a follow-up. Questions in the chat. Starting Genty, Hall, Tet, Neal, and Waddle. Okay, let's see what your question is. It says, also, in addition to the question in Super Chat, who do I drop, if anyone, for either to play Kincaid over Fannin or Marvin over BTJ/Neal? Drop options are Charbonnet, Neal, Fannin, Bucks, Browns, defenses. Stick with my lineup. Okay. I would say I'd be willing to drop Fannin to pick up Kincaid and play him. And I'd also be willing to drop, as of this moment, the Buccaneers defense in order to pick up Marvin and play him over BTJ. Thank you. I understand that you have the Buccaneers defense in preparation for the fantasy playoffs, but even in those technical good matchups, it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed that which they're going to play well. Brian sends it a question, says, must win. I need a wide receiver and a flex. Between Justin Jefferson, Michael Wilson, Juwan Jennings, Waller, C-Rod, Hunter Henry, and Tootin. Of these available, I believe that your two best options are Justin Jefferson and Michael Wilson. Thank you. Kevin sends in a question. Says, start one, Bucky, Franklin, Warren, Purdy, Superflex, full PPR. If Warren is Jalen Warren, I probably play him. Otherwise, I'm leaning towards playing Troy Franklin. Thank you. Cavalry sends in a question. Says, sent in a question. Thank you very much, Cavalry. Says, start four. Rashad White, nope. Justin Jefferson, yep. Juwan Jennings, probably not. Alec Pierce, not interested. Shakir's a yes. Okay, so really quickly, I think there are two auto starts here. Justin Jefferson and Khalil Shakir. To which then when we go into the conversation of the other available options, I'd probably go with Alec Pierce as the next best. And then probably Zach Ertz after that. I don't want to play Juwan Jennings in the snow game, and I don't want to play Rashad White. Second question, start two, Devin Neal, Genty, Woody Marks. Third, okay. Between these available, depends on scoring format. Genty's an auto start, Woody Marks in a half or full PPR. Sorry, Woody Marks in a half PPR standard, Devin Neal in a full PPR. Thank you. Third question, Darren Waller or Colby Parkinson? Give me Darren Waller. Thank you. Roy Shaver sends the questions. If Warren is out, Parker or Gadsden? In the event in which Warren is out, I would probably just rather play Gadsden at that position. I mean, I have Gadsden already next to him on the hip, so I feel like that's a pretty good pivot. Yeah, I think that's pretty solid. Thank you. All right. So we've been here for nearly about an hour. Hope you guys are doing well. Simply just caught up to some of the live chat questions. We'll continue to answer questions here for a little bit here. And then, of course, again, do not forget, what does it say? Kevin says, I messed up. Tyler Warren. Sorry, not Jalen. Okay, got it. So if we're talking about your previously asked question here, Bucky, Franklin, Tyler Warren, or Purdy. Yeah, at that point in a full PPR, I'm just going to play Troy Franklin. I have Kittle and Warren. Got it. So Kittle and Warren. Okay, yeah. So in this, well, hold up. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, makes sense now. So if it's Tyler Warren and not Jalen Warren, in a full PPR, yeah, I'd go Franklin number one, then Warren number two. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Andrew Myers. It says full PPR, pick two. Emeka Ibuka, Nico Collins, Michael Wilson, Khalil Shakir. It's probably Emeka and Nico. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Dexter says Fannin or Otten. I'd prefer to play Otten. And then we have Francisco says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR, should I start in the flex Debo, Chimere, DK, or Waller? I'd play Debo there. Thank you. Let's see here. I have Lamar, Love, and Caleb Williams. Who should I play moving forward? I think it'll be something that you determine on a weekly basis. So if we look at like week 14, looking ahead in terms of like again, this is very early potential like suggestion and or decision to make. But looking at the availables, we have Green Bay versus Chicago against one another. And then we have Lamar taking on, I believe, where's the Steelers. At this point, the way that they're playing, I'd probably just position myself to play Caleb Williams there. All right, let's see here. We had another question from Andrew Myers who says, Hendy, Vidal, Rico, Harvey, pick two. Of the group, I think my two highest ranked is most likely going to be Henderson. And in a half PPR, probably, it's either Harvey or Vidal. I'm not playing Rico there. So between the two of them, let's go half PPR tab. Where is my Excel sheet? Okay. Between the two of them, I probably position myself. I think it's probably Hendy and Vidal, just to be safe. Bearded Patriots, 91, says Neal or Addison in the flex. I got to play Neal there. Thank you. Kid Potential says Lad or Kyron. Flex. Depends on scoring format. If we're in a full PPR, I'll take Lad. If we're in a half PPR or standard, give me Kyron. Thank you. Little or Fairbairn, I'd prefer to play Kaimi Fairbairn going forward. Juwan, Waller, or BTJ, who do I sit? Out of the group, I'm probably sitting Waller, and I'm playing Juwan Johnson and BTJ in a full PPR because of the point per reception capacity. Full PPR, should I flex Vidal or Franklin this week? I think it's probably Vidal. You know what? That's the thing. Vidal doesn't get much receiving work. It could be either way. I think it's a toss-up. Let me see where I had them ranked on Thursday. I don't really want to use Thursday's ranking as like a outright determinant. Where do I have Hampton? Oh, you know what it is? It's not going to be right because, again, I didn't have it. I had Hampton starting. So, as of right now, that's a tough one. I'd probably say that the running back has more potential because it is a running back and they get more touches. But, I mean, Franklin's just been a solid 10 points there consistently. I think Vidal's better, though. Chris Rodriguez or Tyjae Spears? Give me Chris Rod there. Kenneth Walker or Justin Jefferson, full PPR? Probably Kenneth Walker. BTJ or Michael Wilson? Michael Wilson. Jay Sims, what's up? Says, hey, what's up, Andrew? In a half PPR, who do I play between Bucky and Rico? I have Rico one spot ahead of him. Thank you. Tua or Rodgers? Ooh, Rodgers in the Steelers play against Buffalo. I think I'd rather play Tua. Especially if Rodgers has to leave the game with the injury again with his wrist. Maybe that's a little bit sketchy. Debo, Gatson. Okay, we already took care of that one. Hey, Andrew. Happy belated Thanksgiving, brother. Who would you go with the flex? Aaron Jones or John Mechie full PPR? Genuinely, I'd rather play John Mechie. Also, in another league between Knicks and Law or Sutton, Marks, and Gadsden, I'd go with Knicks over Trevor Lawrence, and I would probably play Woody Marks over the group of players there. Thank you. Luis Perez says full PPR, Waller, Charbonnet, Booty, or Mechie, best floor. I think the best floor of production in this circumstance is most likely Charbonnet. Thank you. Hector Hernandez says questions in the chat and continuation as well. Okay, sounds good, brother. Thank you. Says, hey, Andrew. Okay, so we took care of this one. We answered this. Thank you very much, Hector. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm thinking that John Mechie's the play. I don't really want to play Aaron Jones against Seattle. I don't really trust it. Again, they're the best run-stop defense in the league for the last couple weeks here. Over the course of the season, they've been just unstoppable in that category. And, of course, with a third-string quarterback, I don't know if the Vikings are going to be very competitive. I mean, just to shock the world, maybe the Vikings win. Who knows? But I think in the case of this circumstance, I think Mechie's the safer play. And like I mentioned before, we'll take Knicks there, and we'll take probably Woody Marks in this circumstance. Thank you. Yo, PPR pick 2, Sutton, Debo, Jaden Higgins, and Booty. I'd probably play Sutton and Debo there. Those are my two highest ranked players as of right now. Thank you. Alrighty. So we've effectively caught up on a bunch of questions. Again, I do appreciate y'all coming through supporting the channel. This is the third day in a row in which we're live streaming. Again, typically we don't live stream on Fridays, but we did live stream yesterday prior to the game between the Eagles and Bears, in which, of course, the Bears ran through the Eagles defense with, I mean, a ridiculous gashing after gashing after gashing. Quite an incredible setup there. I'm going to probably answer questions for another 5 minutes here, and then we're going to call it. Again, I'll be back tomorrow morning, starting at 7 a.m. PST. Again, we have a 3-hour live stream tomorrow morning. Again, there's a lot of games that have already been played as of this week. 4 games already been playing, but you have to just imagine if the 4 games have already been played, that's 8 teams gone. It'll be a little bit easier to get all the players that are potentially available ranked on screen tomorrow. So as I typically do, I will have those players ranked at a top 36 running back, wide receiver capacity, and then additionally a top 12 kicker defense and top 16 tight end and quarterbacks. If you guys want those all-encompassing rankings every Sunday for the remainder of the season, I've mentioned it before, you can check out the Betr sign up again by signing up today using code Andrew with the link down below, making that first-time deposit minimum of 10, and then additionally making a first-time play. You'll be eligible to get those rankings sent from my email directly to yours every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season. Additionally, on top of that, when you sign up today, you'll get a free $10 via Betr, so make sure you're eligible based on the map that is on the bottom right of the screen in your current location. So as long as you pass those 3 steps, you'll be eligible to get those rankings every Sunday morning. Otherwise, you can always check out the Patreon, in which you can get rankings every Thursday and Sunday. And of course, ask me unlimited questions via the Patreon messaging system, in which you have a potential question for waiver wire pickup, starter sits, trade if your deadline is not already over, etc. Thank you. Okay, let's continue answering questions. We had a question that came in from Colbius, who says, I have Dowdle, Abuka, Tetaroa. Actually, let me pop this back up on screen. Actually, no, I don't need to pop it up on screen. I'll just read it out. Okay. It says, I have, hey, Andrew, in a half Actually, that's a different question. It says, I have, let's pull this up. Okay, there it is. I have Dowdle, Abuka, Tetaroa, Hunter Henry. I have Bucky, Neal, Juwan Johnson, Pearsall, and BTJ on the bench. What would you recommend in a full PPR? As of this week, my recommendation would be Dowdle as your RB1, Abuka as your wide receiver 1. I think Tetaroa is perfectly fine there as your wide receiver 2. And I do believe that your best option at tight end should be Juwan Johnson. That's the way in which I go about it. Now, if any of these are potential flex positions, I wouldn't mind the idea of... No, actually, I'd leave it as that. That's the only difference or change I make there, Colbius. I'd play Juwan Johnson this week. Thank you. All right, we had a question that came in from Arda. Thank you very much. Says, hey, boss, happy Thanksgiving. Questions in the chat. Thank you, Arda. I appreciate it. Okay, Arda says the following. Says, in a half PPR, I need ceiling, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex between Waddle, Wilson, Wandell, Neal, McLaurin, and Sutton. Of those available options, Waddle and Wandell and Wilson are my 3 highest ranked probably going into this week. So that's the direction I go in. Thank you. Mr. Prohibit sends in a question. Prohibit, what's up? Full PPR, Theo Johnson. What is that? Tyler Warren, Hunter Henry for tight end playing catch up. As of right now, I'd still stick with Tyler Warren at tight end 1, Theo Johnson tight end 2, Hunter Henry tight end 3. Thank you. All right, let's hear. Marissa in the chat says, hello. Would you play Rico Pittman or Marvin Harrison? As of right now, it depends on scoring format. If it's a standard or a half PPR, I probably go Rico. In the event in which we're talking about a full PPR scoring format, I go Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think Michael Pittman's worth playing in that circumstance, but I think Marvin Harrison is actually the preferred play, assuming he is healthy. I know he's dealing with an illness, but he is probably the guy that I want to play over the rest of the field. Victor in NYC sends in a question in the live chat. Says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR flex spot, Michael Pittman Jr. versus the tough Houston's defense or Darren Waller versus New Orleans. As of right now, I'd probably feel pretty shitty if I didn't start Michael Pittman there. I think I just have to play that. BTJ or Michael Wilson, Flock, I play Michael Wilson there. Damian Williams, 6'7", says, hey, Andrew, I'm 9-3 rolling with Brissett for 1 more week. Mayfield and Dart on the waivers. Who do I pick up for rest of season playoffs? Pick up Dart. Thank you. Any plays for tomorrow? My apologies if you already went over them. No, I haven't gone over them yet, but I will probably put those together tonight, and then I'll have a graphic tomorrow. You know how you guys see it on tomorrow morning or on Sunday morning live streams? I have a slideshow going on with the rankings on screen. I will include a graphic that'll go over my plays for tomorrow that I like the most, and I'll include them tomorrow. Otherwise, I haven't really had time as of today, the last couple of days, in fact, to potentially look at plays. Obviously, Thursday went well, yesterday not so well, but hopefully it bounced back on Sunday here ahead. Thank you. So yeah, I'll probably include that tomorrow. Add Fannin or Waller. I'd rather have Waller rest season. Their schedule is incredible for tight ends. Thank you. So yeah, as of right now, tomorrow I'll include those plays. A couple of the plays that you might want to potentially grab right now that I was already looking at today. Jacoby Brissett, more than 37.5 passing attempts. Marvin Harrison, more than 3.5 receptions. I like both those a lot. Jay Mars, what's up? Says questions in the chat. Jay Mars, thank you. Whenever you get a chance, type that in. Franklin or Johnston? Mark and Souls, I would play Troy Franklin this week in that circumstance. Jay Mars says, in a full PPR, I need 1 wide receiver and 1 flex. Debo, Alec Pierce, Ricky Pearsall, Isaiah Hodgins, Kayshon Boutte, or Bretton Strange. Of your available options there, I believe that Debo Samuel and Bretton Strange are genuinely your 2 best plays going into the week. Thank you. Big Dog Pound sends in a question. Thank you very much. Says, start 1 running back and 2 flex in a full PPR. We have Travion Henderson, Jalen Warren, Rico Dowdle, Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs, and Terry McLaurin. So I think your RB1 has to be Travion Henderson. I think your flex options should probably be Jalen Warren and most likely either Stephon Diggs or Kenneth Walker. To which right now in a full PPR, I'm a little bit more enticed to start Diggs. So I'm leaning towards Henderson, Jalen Warren, Stephon Diggs there. Thank you, Big Dog. Troy Williams says, Abuka, McMillan, Bucky, full PPR. Choose 1. I'd play Emeka Abuka. Thank you. Alrighty, let me go ahead and close all these tabs because we're not going to need them for the rest of the stream. Let's see here. Also, Tyler Warren 6. Should I play? What is that? Is that supposed to be Gadsden? Aronde Gadsden? If that's what you meant, Troy Williams, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Half PPR, Chris Rodriguez or Tyjae Spears. I answered this before. I'm going to go with Chris Rodriguez there. Thank you. Choose 3 between Genty, Henderson, Neal, and Bucky. I'd probably use Genty and Henderson 100%. And then Neil versus Bucky's dependent on scoring format. I probably go Neil in like a full or maybe Bucky and a half. I don't know. I'm going to go back and forth on it until tomorrow. All right, let's see here. Full PPR, Colby Parkinson or Darren Waller? I'd rather have Darren Waller in my lineup. Thank you. All right, y'all. That's going to be it. I appreciate it. That's where I'm going to call today's live stream. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Again, I'll be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. PST. Again, with updated rankings. Again, if you guys want those rankings outside of the questions being answered in tomorrow's live stream, hopefully you guys can go ahead and potentially support via the via super chats and or potentially via the Patreon, in which you can get all those questions answered, all those rankings, or of course via Betr, in which we'll put together plays tomorrow. I appreciate y'all. That's what we're going to call it. I'm going to go ahead and click the double helix. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.